Good evening. Welcome here. It's good to see you. Good to be here. Lana said a really fitting introduction. Some of you are looking forward to the part that tells you how you can use social media, and some of you are looking forward to the part where I'm going to tell everybody how to not do it. And maybe that split is going to be based mostly on age, I don't know. Some of us, people that get to be a little bit older, they sometimes have a tendency of just anything technology is just garbage. You know, I want nothing to do with it. Don't let me touch it with a 5-foot stick, you know. But we all use technology in one way or another way, right? It's been a journey for myself. When my dad got the first computer and when talking about technology, having, you know, as a teenager, wanting computers because everybody else had them. I don't know how many people actually had them, but in my world, everybody else did, but we. And finally got a computer. It took me less than a week and I had it destroyed. At least enough to send it back to the maker and get it fixed. Because I was just browsing among all those Windows folders there and I couldn't open those files, so they must be useless. I didn't know why a new computer would come with a bunch of files you can't open. So I deleted them. I want to have a clean computer, you know, I keep things organized and clean. About 3 of you know what I'm talking about. The rest of you pretend. That's good too. Anyways, I've learned a few things since then. When the discussion came up about doing a topic on technology, I right away categorized certain things that are going to fit that topic that they're probably looking for. But as I started thinking about that, I was like, wait, I mean, yeah, that's my idea. That's what I think we need to hear. That's where my heart is at right now with whatever circumstances or situations in life. This particular part of technology seems to be important. But technology is everywhere. The definition of technology is basically applying scientific knowledge to improve your life quality. I'm putting my own words to it, but that's the definition of technology. You driving here in a car versus walking, you could call that a technology because it improves your life, or it's convenient. The fact that we have a light switch on the wall is a technology because now we don't have to go light a lamp. That's technology. So I could be talking about light switches all evening. You happy with that? The fact that they can fly people around the moon, that's technology, or it's using technology to do that. But for some reason, I don't think you're expecting me to talk about space flight all evening, as much as my children would love that. So how do we, anyways, why I'm saying all that? What's your expectation? Because if you come here expecting something you're not going to get, you're going to leave disappointed. That is also the reason why I had it in the bulletin already last week, giving you a bit of an overview or a taste of what I'm looking for or what I'm expecting to have on these sessions. The first evening tonight, we're going to look at social media and its potential effects on our lives. We all are affected by it. I think I can say we all are. Some obviously more than others. The second session, as I alluded to on Sunday, those of you that were here, I'll start looking at, actually the second session is going to look more at might almost be more of an introductory session to technology than today is. But somehow this just seemed to fit better with the way I was doing my studies. I wanted to have social media first, get it out of the way. And then we're going to look at some of the basics of technology. What is technology, especially computer technology and artificial intelligence? How does it work? And how can it be used for positive things? What it is and what it is not. And then the third session may be more on the negative side of artificial intelligence, and not only artificial intelligence, but also scams. Oh, don't we love scams? All those robocalls. And some of us that are maybe a little more techie, we can have a lot of fun with them. But it hurts me every time I hear of somebody, especially seniors, that have completely innocently thought they were doing a good deed and just gave away a bunch of money to somebody that was just robbing them, basically. And it is my desire and my prayer that we can bring a little bit of education to that, maybe how to spot scams, how to recognize whether it's legit or not. Because I don't like seeing people just lose money for sad purposes. The goal, kind of alluded to that, spread awareness of the opportunities and risks associated with social media, technology, and artificial intelligence. Provide a clear and balanced information so that you can apply your wisdom and how to make that applicable in your life, make informed decisions. Hopefully, maybe for some of us that are scared of technology, relax. It's something we can handle. It's something that we don't have to be afraid of. Replace fear and anxiety with clarity and understanding. Most of all, my heart is, these verses say it really well. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good, abstain from all appearance of evil, and the very God of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray, God, your whole spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. When I think of, and this is my passion, this is my heart, that we as church, the bride of Christ, that we would be a pure, shining representation of Christ here on earth. If these sessions don't help towards that, then I have failed miserably. That's my heart, and I hope you will get that. At the end of this session, it will point in that direction. That we as Christians, that we can walk a life that is pure, that is holistic, not partial but whole, as well as holy. That our lifestyle or thinking or activities or thoughts and so on, that they would reflect Christ. Now, Lannis alluded to this a little bit. Some of us don't like to be told what to do. I live my life. Don't you tell me what to do. I will try to honor that. Yeah, maybe I'll a little bit tell you how to do things. But I was studying, actually Stephen Bartz had a message here, I don't know, a couple years ago. Had a message on wisdom and how wisdom is standing in the corner crying at you. If you would only listen and pay attention, there's direction for your life. But most of us like, well, if it doesn't say thou shalt not do this or thou shalt do this, well then I don't know, then I can do what I want. No, there is wisdom that is crying to us sometimes. Proverbs 1:20 says, wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates in the city. She uttereth her voice, saying, and it goes on to talk about, in chapter 1, it talks about purity and stuff like that. You get to chapter 8, has another whole section on wisdom. It says, doth not wisdom cry and understanding put forth her voice? She standeth in the top of high places, by the way, in the places of the paths. She crieth at the gates, at the entry of the city, at the coming in at the doors. Unto you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of man. O ye simple, understand wisdom, and ye fools be of an understanding heart. Hear, for I will speak of excellent things, and the opening of my lips shall be right things. For my mouth shall speak truth, and wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness, there is nothing froward or perverse in them. They are all plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that find knowledge. And I'm jumping to verse 14, skipping a few verses. And here wisdom is really putting out a claim. Counsel is mine, and sound wisdom. I am understanding, I have strength. By me kings reign, and princes decree justice. By me princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. I love them that love me, and those that seek me early shall find me. And then I'm skipping a whole bunch of verses and go to the last verse of the chapter. I think it's the last verse, verse 36. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me, I love death. Wow. Wisdom has something to say. Wisdom is making a big claim. The question is, are you listening? Do you listen to wisdom, or are you just like, the Bible doesn't say thou shalt not, so I can do what I want? I like how Proverbs is written in this part of personifying wisdom, portraying it as a person. Sometimes it helps you understand that. You know, wisdom is standing in the street corner crying at you, hey, look out, where are you going, right? You got to run over by a bus if you're not paying attention. So tonight, my desire is to present some facts about social media, how that affects us. This will be a scientific lesson. It will be parental training. It will be for all you teenagers. It's basically all ages. But you will have different ways of applying this. I want to give you information, and I want you to go check with wisdom to see what you're supposed to do about it. Okay? You good with that? That way I don't have to tell you. That way I don't have to tell you that you have to do so and so. You just go check with wisdom. See what he says. Or she. In this case, it's referring to it as a she. I don't want anybody leaving here saying, well, Delmar said so, that's why I'm going to do this. No, don't do it because I say that. Do it because wisdom. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about social media, what it is, the good and the bad, or maybe rather the bad and the good. So what is social media? Basically, social media is a collection of different platforms that are designed in a way for users to communicate to each other. So the content on social media, so how that's different than just a regular website, you know, you can go to Best Buy or Home Hardware or Veeder, whatever, Okno's website, maybe you have your own website. That content on that website is created by an owner, and it is designated, and it's been formatted to what that person wants. You as a user visiting that website has no control over what's displayed on that website. All you can do is go there and look at it. Somebody owns that website, they control it. Social media, on the other hand, the content is user-driven. So that means you and I can go to social media, to that platform, we can make a user account there, and then we can start putting stuff onto that platform. And anybody can, users can. The different platforms, they obviously have a little different rules and different this and different that as far as how that exactly gets done, what kind of loops you have to jump through to get that there. They have their rules of you can't post certain things and you can't, whatever. They control those things, right? And yeah, so it's user-driven. So that's the biggest difference, basically, is one is user-driven content and one is set by an owner, so to speak. Before I forget, I was going to do one other thing in the introduction. FYI, especially for your parents, I expect this session to be over an hour long. And so just so you have an idea, we got 7:26 now. I promise you I'll stop at 9 o'clock. I will not go over 9 o'clock. Then it's just time to end. I'm estimating my time to be between 8:30 and 8:45, just so you have an expectational, so you have a bit of an idea. Don't think yeah. It helps me sometimes to have an understanding of that. If you know ahead of time, it's going to be a bit of a longer session. Continue with social media here. So what is social media? So like I said, the fuel of social media is user content, user-driven, created by the people that are using it. One of the things that social media is good at, or is designed as a platform, is it allows people to bypass geographical limitations or boundaries to find their people. These can be based on interest, relationships, or professional networking. So for example, you and I can be sitting in a coffee shop and we can have a relationship. Well, if you go to social media, you're not limited to being together in person. I mean, you all know this already, but I'm saying it anyway. Social media allows you to connect, communicate, share information with people that are anywhere in the world. As long as you have access to the same platform, you can share content and information. Could be in Belize, could be in Afghanistan, could be in wherever. Like you have anywhere in the world, you share content. That's, yeah, you can build relationships with people outside of your geographical location. Interest, one of the things that social media allows you to do pretty well, most of them, or a number of them anyways, is becoming friends or following groups or whatever of people of like-minded interests. So for example, if you're a photographer, you can connect with, go on in a group that has to do with photography or with CNC milling or with cooking or with sewing or whatever your interests are. You can find groups like that. Or you like three-wheelers, and so you join a group somewhere that talks about three-wheelers, and then you can discuss all kinds of things about three-wheelers. Social media allows you to do that type of networking and connecting with people of like-minded interest, even if they're not in the same community as you are. Another thing that social media is kind of known for, or is very popular on social media, and they do this differently, not all exactly the same, but things like commenting, liking something, sharing content, I already talked about that, and DM, all of you social freaks, you should know what DM means. Direct messaging. I learned that term after I was 21, can you believe it? I'm that old. So real-time interaction, you know, if you post something on Instagram or on wherever, somebody else from another community or your next door neighbor or your sister in the next room could go on there and they can like it, and then it pops up and say, oh, so I got a like, somebody liked what I said. They can comment on what I posted, they can, or I can comment on what you posted. Like it's a communicating back and forth in that way. Algorithmic curation. So what most, if not all, I'm guessing they all do this, I can't prove that, but a lot of them do, is they curate content for you to see. So if you follow certain people, you will get to see their content. But the platform usually throws you other content in there as well that you don't necessarily follow. Take Instagram, for example. I did the other day just to check. I actually checked Facebook too. But so I follow certain people on Facebook. So I go on Facebook because I want to see what my friends post, right? I know Facebook is old. I know that makes me old, but that's just bear with me. And I scrolled along and I counted. 1, 2, 3 out of the first 10 cards that I saw or posts, I think there was 3 of them that were from people that I know. The other 7 were what Facebook just threw in there and thought that I should see. Back in, when did Facebook start? I don't even know. Anyways, a long time ago, it was not nearly that bad. I think right in the beginning, there's probably almost 0 advertisements and content curation that they threw in there. Most of these big platforms, by the way, they started with 1 or 2 guys in their parents' garage, and they were just excited to pound things with their fingers and write code and see what they could make. And all of a sudden they, oh, well, we can do this, and oh, we can do that. And it, you know, 3 months later, they figured out, hey, maybe we can make some money with this. They started very small, but they had a way of, obviously by now, it's not that small anymore. So this curation of content is what is called a feed, and it feeds us information. And that feed is based on your interest. How in the world do they know what your interests are? Let's find out. I threw this slide in here. I'm not sure that it's very important. There is a lot of different flavors of social media. Social networks like Facebook, LinkedIn, so on, focus on connecting with people, media sharing, focus on visual content like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Be Real. It's more like photos, videos, audio, stuff like that. Discussion forums, be like Reddit and Quora and stuff like that. Microblogging, have to do with real short, just short kind of one-phrasers. X is in there, threads. Now, X has changed. It used to be Twitter, but they aren't that short anymore either. You can do pretty long posts in there already by now too. For the discussion today, I want to throw WhatsApp status in some of this as well. For some of the effects and impact that it has on our lives and in our brains, status affects that too. And we'll get to that. And that would also include things like Telegram. If you follow certain people on Telegram that post a lot, that can start becoming the same type of effect on a user. All right, so how does this work? Social media companies, they are big and they make lots of money. At least that's what we always think. Nothing wrong with making money. We all like to make money. How does it work? Generally speaking, and I recognize that some of the stuff today is changing. These companies, almost any company that gets, I don't know, that gets a huge company with lots of revenue, they are smart in the sense of they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, so they will diversify. And so what I'm saying here is that social medias get their revenue from selling ads. That is generally true, but most big companies by now, they will spread out their income. It's not only going to be revenue from ads. But the way I'm talking about social media today, it's going to be focusing a little bit more on that type of stuff, or ads. And so the more ads a user sees, the more money the social media companies make. So you can already see where that's going. The longer a user is on their platform, the more ads they see. And these companies, they spend billions of dollars for what? Not just for the fun of it. Not because they hate you, not because they want to destroy you, but because they want to increase their revenue. And how are they increasing their revenue? By having you look at their platform longer. Every minute you spend on their platform is another dollar for their bank account, right? I'm being very simplistic, can't even say that word, simple, and general here with my comments here, okay? You understand that, right? You can go into details and tear this thing apart yet, but generally speaking, that's why they want you on their platform, because they want revenue. The longer you spend on Instagram or Be Real or whatever company you're spending time on, or platform, the more revenue they get for selling ads. So they spend billions of dollars to figure out how they can make Delmar Penner spend 6 more minutes a day on social media. They've never heard my name. They don't care who I am. They just care that another set of eyes is going to be looking at that thing. Algorithms track, and Instagram, Facebook, and these places, the algorithms track how you're scrolling through their feed. You're scrolling along there and you pause for just a brief moment to look, oh, what was that? They catch that. And they know what you were looking at. And so that tells them what you're interested in. And you think you can fool them? I heard a guy one time just a couple weeks ago, told me, he said, he had decided that he would fool the algorithm. He would start looking at a lot of farming videos. And hopefully he would start seeing a lot of that stuff. You know what? They're smarter than that. You know why? Because you're not consistent. All right, for 2 weeks I'm going to look just at farming stuff, right? But you don't care about farming. All you care about is, sewing dolls, or I don't know, whatever it is. And so, guess what you're going to do? You're going to still scroll along there. Every time you're going to see this thing that you really are interested in, you're still going to pause and look at it, because that's really what you want to look at. And then you remember that, oh no, I should be looking at farming videos, and you go look at farming videos again, but you still looked at that other thing. And then give it 3 days or something, get tired of it, and then you just give up and start looking at the stuff you want to look at again. Hey, they'll figure it out. Their algorithms figured that out. It don't take that long. It's not that complicated. We are people of habit. And if we don't have self-control, those habits just roll right into social media. Their algorithms determine interest and show content accordingly, including ads. Some of you will say, well, but I've never seen an ad. Yes, you have. You just haven't recognized it as an ad. They have their ways. What do you think social media would show you if you had a brand new phone or brand new computer and you'd never been on that platform, you make a new account, and you go on there? What do you think they will show you? They haven't yet figured out what you like. I had that wonderful opportunity this week. Had a new computer at work, and I was setting it up, and I was like, you know what? I'm studying this whole technology thing. I wonder if I would go to YouTube. I had never been on YouTube on that computer. That computer had not been on YouTube at all before. And so I just went on youtube.com just to see, what's it going to show up? You know what? Nothing. Completely blank white page. I was like, huh? Nothing. I thought it'd be full of stuff right away. I did one search. I can't even remember what I searched for. I think something about setting up a computer or a network, or I can't remember. Something IT related, I think I did. Or maybe it was the nature one. Maybe I can't remember. I wanted to see how good anyways, that goes off to what I was trying to do. I searched something related to the work I was doing with IT. One search. And after that, I go to YouTube now on that computer. It always has unlimited scrolling. You can scroll forever on that thing. It'll never come to an end of what it will suggest you to watch. One search, and it doesn't fully know you yet, but it right away, it had different IT stuff on there. It had, network chuck was on there, and there was different related stuff that it showed up. But the interesting thing was, it seemed to me that it was also suggesting a lot of other things that it thought I probably should be interested in. And it's not that complicated to figure out what most people are interested in. I mean, there's some generalities in there with that. Anyways, enough of that. They know what you like. They know what you're interested in through their algorithms tracking what you do. So here's one thing about social media. Social media has a way of, for many people, to kind of satisfy the desire for relationships. It doesn't do that fully. It doesn't do that in a holistic way. It does it superficially. Because it's not how do I say this? You have social media, you can connect with real people. Like, me and Jeremy could be interacting on social media, so we're both real human beings. That's good, no problem. But when you follow people that you have no idea who they are, and you just see their content, and then you start just scrolling, and then letting the algorithms feed you content, that will make you feel good for a while. But when you quit, you go to bed, you'll feel empty. It doesn't give you a full satisfaction of relationships. We'll get into that more on that later. On social media, you don't have to do the hard stuff that real people do. It's made super easy on purpose. You don't have to listen when someone is sad. You don't have to help them. You don't have to spend real time with them. Again, I'm talking about the superficial relationships we can have on social media, people we don't know. You can sit on a couch, you can tap your phone, your brain thinks you're getting friends without any real work or any commitment. It's very easy. You are definitely connecting, but you are not really fulfilling the God-given need for an actual relationship. So connection does not equal relationship. And we'll talk more about that later. Oops, that went too far, too fast. I'm going to see if I have more notes here. Oh yes, here's one example I was going to mention. We are quickly getting away from the getting stuck in the ditch part of life. But let's say you're driving down the road and it's winter, and it was just winter, and you hit the ditch and you're stuck in the ditch. You go and post on social media, hey, I'm stuck in the ditch, I need help. Who do you think is going to show up to help you? Not the person with 10,000 followers somewhere down in Texas. Even if they saw your post, they wouldn't come and help you. You know why? Because they're not here, and they probably don't care. If somebody comes and helps you, guess what? It's going to be somebody that you know in person. Almost guaranteed. Or at least an acquaintance, because if I saw a post on social media somewhere, somebody says, I'm stuck in a ditch. Whatever, you have your friends to help you, right? Now, if I'm driving down the road and I see somebody stuck in a ditch, then I can stop and help them. Because now we're in person, like we know each other. Well, we don't know each other, but we're in the same vicinity. We're face to face, we're in person. That does not mean, and I have to say this because this is the reality, and sometimes I wish I could just keep to my agenda and make you think this is all bad in that sense. But there is such a thing as people that are depressed or have a really unfortunate home situation. They can sometimes improve their situation by going on social media and just chatting up somebody, total stranger. Now, I would say that's very unfortunate that is better than real life, because I believe God's plan would be that real life would be a lot better than that. You follow what I'm saying? If you are in a home situation where family life, or it is so bad that you need to go on social media and contact somebody that's a total stranger and talk to them, well, you hope they're going to give you good advice. You hope they'll be honest people. I'm just trying to think the other way around. If I'm sitting there and some total stranger message me out of the blue on social media and ask for help, I know who I am and I know how I would want to help them. So if you're that person that is having you're in depression, or you have whatever things you're dealing with, you reach out to a stranger, that's a very dangerous thing to do. But I cannot tell you that it will end badly, because you may end up, messaging just the right person that can help you. That there is that possibility, because there are all kinds of people on social media, right? Let's go on. I want to talk about some definitions, because these affect social media. This is where the science lessons come in. Dopamine. How many of you have heard the word dopamine before? If you're familiar with social media, you should know that word. Good, then I could just skip this. Well, I'm going to say it anyway, or I'll try to explain it. And some of you might be able to do this better than I can, but that's fine. I'll do my best anyways. Dopamine is a system that God has built into our brain. It's basically a little splash of chemical that gets released in our brain that makes you feel happy. When something good happens, you get that little shot of excitement and happiness. That's dopamine in your brain giving you a little squirt of happiness. I call it the happy juice. And excitement. It's like the brain giving you a high five. The brain giving itself and they're giving you high fives. You know, it's something good happened. For example, you're playing soccer. I like soccer, okay. I should probably use baseball, but I like soccer. And so you're playing soccer and the score is tied and recess is almost over, or whatever event you have. But you see a chance that you might score. And you and your teammates, your forwards are playing, and you kick and you score. Sure enough, you got that goal. That feeling right after that, that's dopamine. Yes! That feels good. That's dopamine. You know what dopamine does? You can get dopamine before you get that victory. Dopamine is there, I think God created it that way to help us to learn. Because when you find out what that feels like, that you scored, you made a goal, that feels so good, you know what that does? I want to do that again. So next time, when the ball comes from the defense and you get that ball again and you're going forward, you know what? You have motivation. You know, that felt good. You don't consciously think about that, but your brain does it for you. Like, that felt good, I know how to do that. I need to get that goal into that net, that ball into that net. Then I'll get that feeling again. So dopamine's already feeding you some of that happy juice just in anticipation. I'm going to get that, you know. And if you missed, well, I tried. Try again next time. Dopamine is there to reinforce learning. That was good. It figures out what you did to get that result. And I felt good, so I'll do that again. So that's the brain doing with happy juice in your brain like that. And that can be in all kinds of things. It could be hiking to a waterfalls, and you know it's somewhere in here. You don't know exactly where, but maybe it's around that next bend, and you're in eager anticipation. You're getting a little squirt of dopamine already as you anticipate coming across that corner and seeing that waterfall. That could be, oh, you're going to love this one. If you're dating, and you walk down Main Street in Arbrig, and then all of a sudden across the street you see your girlfriend. That's dopamine. It's like, oh yes. Or your boyfriend, or your spouse, or your whatever. But you get the point. It's that happy feeling in your head, in your brain. So a little graphic there to show that. Reward for good things. When you do great things, you get a D. A D. An A, but a D for dopamine, okay? Your dopamine, the brain gives you a high five for that. Number two, it teaches you how it feels good. The brain learns that the trail made me happy. That trail made me happy. So it's brain cells and the dopamine connect that together, and you've learned that. Put it on your little SD card there. And number three, it motivates you for more. Oh, look at that guy's playing soccer. He wants to make a goal again. So that's your little visual for dopamine. It's that happy juice in your brain. And it works with, you have experienced it once, it felt good, dopamine can already make you feel good before you see that next thing again. Yeah, you already know where that's going with social media, right? Okay, another thing we want to learn. Another definition. Your brain has what is called a prefrontal cortex. That is this part of the brain, right behind your skull, behind your forehead. That is a very important part of your brain. Anybody know what that does? Now you're allowed to say something. Half of you really know, but you're just too embarrassed to say something, or how does this work? Well, then you have to stick with my definition. So while the rest of your brain takes care of things like sensors and handling, basic survival functions and emotions, the prefrontal cortex acts a little bit like the manager, like a CEO, like an executive. And it is strongly involved, and it's not the only thing, that's why I'm not saying it's the only thing, but it is strongly involved in things like planning, in things like decision-making, self-control, attention, RAM, or working memory. If you're a computer guy, then you know what RAM means. That's what that working memory would relate to, and social behavior. Now, you have no idea how that relates to social media, right? Don't run ahead of me here. Planning, decision-making, like impulse control, self-control, decision-making, weighing the pros and the cons. You get choices brought to you, and you have to make a decision. So your prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that handles okay, if I do this, I get this. If I do this, I get this. It's comparing, it's making decisions. It's a decision maker in your brain. Self-control. So one way to say this is your amygdala, that's a different part of the brain. The amygdala is basically your emotional part of your brain. Somebody disappointed me, I'm angry. Just my instant, I'm sad. I got a candy, I'm happy, or whatever. It's your raw emotional response is the amygdala. The prefrontal cortex is like the shock absorber for that. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that God intended to be used as a stabilizer, as a control system, as an executive director that says, calm down. Yeah, I know that's really exciting. You maybe feel really hurt, but it's okay. You don't have to get so excited about this. Your amygdala is the emotional part, so it rises up in emotion for whatever reason, something really big happened. Your prefrontal cortex looks at that and is like, wait a minute, is that really a big deal, or am I just overreacting? That's the prefrontal cortex. Story goes of a guy that a couple hundred years ago, when they were building the railroads across the country everywhere, safety wasn't quite as big of a deal then, and they were dynamiting off the side of the mountain to build a railroad. One day had an accident where some dynamite stick blasted off before it was ready, and some shrapnel came and took the front part of his head off. Like just took his face and the front part of his whatever. How the guy survived, I don't know. Apparently it's a true story, which obviously I wasn't there, so I can't verify. He survived. Before the accident, he was known as a calm, collected gentleman. After the accident, he would blow up in anger, he would have no self-control. And that's because the front part of his brain was gone. It had blasted off or sheared off part of his prefrontal cortex. What else do we have? Working memory. This is a good one. RAM. I work with computers. I like RAM. I like sticking sticks of RAM into a computer and seeing those numbers go up. And all you computer guys, you like that, right? How does that work with your brain, your prefrontal cortex? So you have a job that has 8 steps. You want to take a washing machine apart or a sewing machine, I don't know. You have to do this, and then 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 this, in that order for it to work. Some of us like to just have that list and just do one thing at a time, and you tell me what to do. But the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that has the ability to realize where I am in these steps. I'm in step 2 now. I just did this. I'm going to do step 3 next. It does that working memory where it has the whole thing in its working memory, as we call it. So it understands and realizes where in the process it is, where it has been, and where it's going. That's the prefrontal cortex handles that type of stuff. It becomes very important when you want to, we'll get to that. Let me see, what else was I going to say about this? The amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, they often have a bit of a tug-of-war going on because the amygdala is the emotional response and the prefrontal cortex is the braking system. It's like, oh, calm down, like, just be okay here. The social behavior part. And you recognize, if you're into science and you know your body stuff like this, I am being very simple here. I am trying to simplify this stuff. You can go into more details and tear this thing apart a little bit if you wanted to go really detailed. Social behavior. So the prefrontal cortex is the how does it say here? It's where the you really lives. Like the prefrontal cortex also is where your you-ness lives. So basically who you really are is part of your prefrontal cortex. It makes you who you are. It helps you navigate social situations, understand social cues. So for example, that's the part of the brain that helps you understand and recognize that when I'm on a date with my girlfriend or my wife, then I speak differently than if I'm going on a business trip with my employer. You know, you would think that should sound and feel a little different between those two. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that understands that and helps to regulate that, understanding social cues and understanding that in this situation I'm okay doing this, but in this situation I'm acting a little differently, or I speak differently, or that sort of thing. The social behavior part. Now, that last phrase there, usually not fully mature until your mid-20s. Oh, you teenagers, oh, you hate that phrase. Why are teenagers the ones that, no, let's back up. The 5-year-olds, okay? Why are the 5-year-olds looking like this and then running into a wall and then they cry and they don't know why they got hurt? Turn your head and look where you're going if you're going to be running or walking. See, when you get 25, you understand that. The prefrontal cortex has already developed a little bit more. And when you're a teenager, oh boy, what do teenagers do? No, I'm not going to raise hands. We teenagers like to be teenagers. We like to live life exciting. We will climb up the tree to the very top branch and then look down and see whether the branch is strong enough, right? We will take a motorcycle or a bicycle and ramp it, even if it makes sense or not. Sometimes you say something or you do something, and especially when you have 3 guys together, and then all of a sudden things get a little bit out of hand, and because you're all excited and your amygdala is running the show and your prefrontal cortex hasn't yet fully developed, and you end up in all kinds of really interesting situations that are usually fun to talk about, 2 years later. Yeah, I've been there. But your prefrontal cortex isn't yet fully developed. The rest of your brain develops before your prefrontal cortex does fully. So, yeah, this affects social media. So, we want to look a little bit at, I call it doom scrolling. There's different phrases for it. The next section of this presentation is going to focus on what this does to your brain. And I'm focusing specifically on passive, excessive amounts of social media. There are good ways to use social media. I'll get to that at the end. And so I just want you to remember that when this next part is going to sound really negative, it's based on what you're doing on social media. Okay, you got that? I've mostly framed this as excessive social media use. Last couple of days, I thought about it's maybe not the right word to use excessive. Maybe I should have simply said wrong social media use. Alrighty, let's see where this gets us. Are you addicted? The big question. Are you addicted? Several of you have seen that survey I put out several weeks ago. One of the questions in that survey was, do you consider yourself addicted to social media? And some of you responded to that survey, and some of you didn't even know there was a survey. I was really surprised. There was another question in that survey that asked the question, how much time do you spend on social media? Some of you know that. I was also surprised. That number was actually higher than I had expected. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect, so it's not like I was really surprised, but I was a little bit. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on that survey. But because I started talking about it, you guys really want to know what that survey said. I will give it to you. A couple of weeks ago, like a couple of days after the survey came out, it said 45% were addicted to social media. Self-admitted addicts to social media. That number has gone down. As more people fill out the survey, that number has gone down. Now, I want to take, let me say something else first. Now that number stands at 36%. If I filter it to IMF Anchor of Hope, that was one of the questions there, church attendance. IMF Anchor of Hope attendance, so that's us, 36.2, I think it was, percent addicted, self-admitted addicted to social media. That surprised me. I'll be honest. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know whether to cry or to... Because I don't know what you feel when you hear that. It does not well up with pride in me when I hear that. That's who we are. Here's one thing I want you to learn when it comes to technology. And this next 5 minutes is going to be a very general overview of news, of surveys, of anything you read on the internet. So I just told you that 36% were self-admitted addicts to social media. Have you considered what I actually said? So often when you go on news or on social media and you read statistics or news in general, you only see what they put out. And if you knew the whole story, the truth that they might have said completely changes. So 36% addicted to social media. Let me help you think this through a little bit. That's not a lie. That's exactly what that survey said. But I only posted that survey on WhatsApp status. So only the people that were on WhatsApp status even had a chance at filling out the survey. Already see how your perspective changes a little bit? Who do you think is most likely to fill out a survey like that on social media, on WhatsApp status? The people addicted to social media probably would be the first ones to fill out a survey like that because that's on social media, and right now I'm categorizing WhatsApp status as social media. They're more familiar. They're more like, oh yeah, sure, cool thing, fill it out, good. The people that don't spend much time on social media, that are definitely not addicts on social media, they'll look at that and say, I don't know, I don't care, I'll just whatever. You see how your perspective of that survey starts changing even more? Yeah, 36%. But of what? Of who? If every person in this church from 18 years of age and older would fill that out, I think the number would change quite drastically. But 36% still says something. Those people that filled out that survey, 36% of those people, of IMF Anchor of Hope people, admitted to themselves that they were addicted to social media. Now, I've had a few people come to me asking me about that survey, and they said, so what do you call addicted? I said, well, it doesn't matter what I call addicted. It matters what you call addicted, because I asked, what do you consider yourself addicted? And we all agree that addiction has negative connotations. You wouldn't boast about being addicted to something. That's not a positive thing. And so the fact that you or whoever it was admitted that they were addicted to social media already self-admits that they have something negative. So where whoever it was that filled out that survey and said, I'm addicted to social media, where you call your addiction to start, I don't care. That wasn't the point. So, let's continue. Are you addicted? I'm hoping today to give you a little bit of a test so you can see whether you're addicted. I'm not going to go tell you if you're addicted. One person can be addicted by this and one person will be addicted by this, right? So there's not a straight line to who's addicted and who isn't. All right, we've watched that phone scroll enough. So, in order to see whether we're addicted or not, that was, by the way, an AI-generated video, okay? That wasn't me scrolling on my phone. Anyways, We're going to look at two things of how dopamine affects your brain and see if you have been affected by a dopamine deficit. And we will also look a little bit at your prefrontal cortex. We will look at your okay, no, just kidding. We will leave it in your brain. Don't worry, I'm not going to take it out. So yeah, let's take a look at this a little bit. Overuse of social media, addiction, causes high levels of dopamine to be released. A little visual for that. The brain auto-corrects high dopamine by turning down sensitivity. This means that now everything else is boring and depressing. And guess what? That just drives you back to social media because that gives me more dopamine. So if you're into photography, if you go outside on a sunny day in winter when the snow is white and everything's really, really bright and you need 2 sets of shades, you're inside, you take pictures with your camera. Then you go outside, if you're on manual, like I shoot manual, then it's just completely white out on the screen, like it's way too bright. Justin knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you have to turn your ISO down or whatever, change your exposure so you can compensate to the brightness outside. When you come back inside, and if you're still on manual, if your exposure is set to the brightness outside, you come inside, it's like, yeah, you have lights on, but it's still dark. Like your screen will be basically black. That's a little bit what this dopamine thing happens. When you get lots of dopamine, lots of light, way too bright, way too much dopamine, I'm being simple here. It turns down the receptors. It turns down the sensitivity to dopamine so that it can regulate, because it's not going to fry out your brain. It's protecting your brain. The thing is, the dopamine sensitivity levels do not change overnight. You cannot go flip a switch and say, now I'm outside, and flip a switch, now I'm inside. It takes weeks. Constant social media use, overpouring of dopamine, your sensitivity levels for dopamine feeling, like to get that happy feeling, get that excitement, gets turned down and down and down. The more time you spend on social media, the more it puts it down to regulate the dopamine. That means when you now get into real life and with real people and with, the real world, nothing is exciting anymore. It's just all boring. No, I just go back on social media. At least that gives me a little bit of juice, Anyways, you can already see how that creates an addiction cycle. It is really very much like a drug. Very much like a drug. Excessive social media use acts like a drug. It does basically this. I want to be careful how I say it. I don't want to overstate it, but you get the point. It slumps your brain from a really low point when you're not on social media, and then all of a sudden you get on social media, you get, anyways. So here is some signs of dopamine deficit. I actually kind of covered some of these. Feeling little or no pleasure from everyday activities like reading or nature or face-to-face conversations. Low motivation or drive to do work, schoolwork, hobbies, exercise, or other responsibilities. There's just no blah, you just feel like no energy. There we go. Feeling tired, flat, numb, emotionally blah. Even when nothing is obviously wrong. It's like when you look at your life, like everything, you have food, you have clothes, you have friends, you have a good family, but you just feels, you need to spend more and more time on social media just to feel normal. Not to get the high necessarily, but just to even bring it back to normal. Irritable, restless, or anxious when you're unable to check social media or when you're offline for a day. That would be a sign. Difficulty concentrating or feeling bored by slower real-world tasks. Preferring quick online rewards over deeper, slower, real-life experiences. I'm not only talking to teenagers. I'm talking to us married people as well. We can spend time on social media and it dulls our dopamine levels. So when me and my wife go on a date, we don't know what to talk about, just boring. Maybe we should just pull out our phones and, if that's your marriage. Boy. How about talk with wisdom? Okay, you do that. Couples sit side by side on the couch, each on their phone, scrolling through social media instead of connecting. You know what? There's a lot better things you could do than just sitting on the phones. I know in our marriage, we have the times that we get to spend together alone is already low enough, if you know what I mean. Those of you that have children, you know what I'm talking about. We love our children, don't get me wrong, but they can be busy. And if we can spend some time alone without the children there, that is precious. It would be foolish to spend that time just scrolling through social media. Yeah. Mood swings that improve only while scrolling or getting likes or notifications. Social media hijacks the brain's natural reward system by delivering fast, exciting dopamine hits through likes and comments and DMs or direct messages, making it very hard for your brain to stay interested in slower real-life rewards. So how does social media do this? Like I said earlier, they spend billions of dollars to figure out what the best way is to keep you coming back to social media. So they don't, not every time you go on social media are you going to have a like or a comment or a notification. But you know what? They figured out that having it a little bit sporadic, not always every time, actually makes you come back more than if it was there every time. And so they figured out this system where, you know, often there will be a like or there'll be a comment or they'll have something new showing up, but not every time. But you always have to go back and check. Well, maybe there's a new message now. Maybe somebody commented on my post now. It feels good on the short term. But it's overwhelming the brain with dopamine. That's what causes addiction. So, another thing is loss of attention. Now this focuses on the prefrontal cortex. We talked a little bit about, introduction to it before. The most immediate and observable effect of excessive social media use or wrong use is fragmentation of the brain's attention. Digital platforms are designed for speed and for rapid task switching. Facebook does this, Instagram does this, TikTok does this, YouTube does this, WhatsApp status does this. Pretty much any social media. They have what they call infinite scroll. Status wouldn't have the infinite scroll, but the others do. You can scroll forever. Like you'll never get to the end of whatever's the next thing showing up. Those of you on social media, you know what I'm talking about. And when you scroll fast, you spending what, less than half a second or 1 second on one topic and then already the next one and the next one and the next one? And that could be on WhatsApp status. You tap through those pictures or the posts, just tap, 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 just go through like that. That affects your brain. Your brain is made neuroplasticity. It molds to what's going on. It learns, it adapts. When you have that many hours a day, oh, by the way, according to the survey, now you recognize the criteria of the survey, but the average social media use of us is, I had it between 1 and 2 hours, and most of them were there, but average was about 1.3 hours a day, 1.3 to 1.7 hours a day, average, that we spend on social media. Well, according to that survey. So again, now you recognize a little bit what that survey means, right? So I am not telling you where the addiction part starts, whether that's at 20 minutes or at 65 minutes. But if you're suffering from some suffering, if you're living with some of these consequences, then maybe you need to consider this. But, okay, so here's where I was going with that. You have a lot of things flashing in front of your face. That can even be movies, watching videos and stuff like that. Constantly changing, constantly switching topics. That trains your brain for shallow thinking. That trains your brain. Let that sink into your brain. I'm going to say it a second time. That trains your brain for shallow thinking. What's the opposite of shallow thinking? Deep thinking. Do you struggle with deeply meditating on something, or deeply processing a thought? Where does that go when we start Bible study? The ability to deeply consider a verse and to ponder a verse when your brain has been told or taught by social media to just shallow thinking? Your brain is moldable, like it learns. And it will learn, like again, it takes time. You don't have an on and off switch. It's not an on and off switch. When it's been soaked in with just very shallow stuff, you'll have a hard time deeply considering and thinking something. Trains, I said that already. Same thing with attention span, being able to start a thought and hold that thought all the way till here and still be thinking about the same thing. Some of us struggle with that. Constant interruption leads to attention residue. The brain remains partially focused on the previous distraction, reducing the efficiency of the current task by up to 40%. Boy, oh boy, that's my life at work all the time. I just started on something and then the phone rings or somebody walks in and they need help with this, and then I go do that and I come back and say, okay, where was I at? I was working on this. And then finally figured out where you're working at, you're starting and have another interruption. So interruptions make you very inefficient. Well, that's your brain. Like it doesn't have to be social media, it could be other things too. But social media trains you for that, like it fragments the brain. Excessive exposure to rapid fragmented content, particularly short-form videos, overstimulates cognitive processes. This leads to reduced theta brainwave activity in the frontal cortex, which is involved in maintaining focus and controlling impulses. As a result, users find it increasingly difficult to engage with long-form content, such as books or complex academic articles, as the brain has been retrained to expect constant shifts in stimuli. Do you struggle with that sentence being that long? Some of you are laughing. You want a test? So in my studies for social media, that was one study. Now that's just like 3 sentences. I haven't counted, but it's only a few sentences. That article was, I can't remember, was it like 80 pages long or something? And it all looked like that. How many people would enjoy reading that? Nobody. It takes me a while to get into reading something like that. I don't know if I even want to try. I do want to keep my time here. So let's just focus on that one sentence. Let me see if I can read this in one standing. Within the addiction framework, one would hypothesize that excessive and ultimately problematic use of the smartphone would be characterized by symptoms such as loss of control and preoccupation with use reflected in, for example, unsuccessful attempts to reduce or continued use despite negative consequences, as well as social problems and functional impairments in daily life, which represent key diagnostic symptoms of both substance and behavioral addictions. And then it's mentioned some studies. Now you know exactly what it says, right? Oh, you didn't come here to study. You were just going to be told what to do. No? Do you disagree? Within the addiction framework, I know we're jumping into the middle of a topic here, right? But within the addiction framework, so this is a study that somebody did. And so they have the abstract first. They tell you how the study was done, like the stuff I told you earlier after I told you what the survey results were. There's a lot of factors that help you understand. When you finally actually read the results of the study, you understand what was actually about the study, right? A lot of boring stuff, but it's important. So within the addiction framework, one would hypothesize that excessive and ultimately problematic use of the smartphone, so you can basically go here with hypothesize that excessive use of the smartphone would be characterized by symptoms such as loss of control and preoccupation with use, which represent key diagnostic symptoms of both substance and behavioral addictions. This sentence has a subject. And now, I'm going to butcher this. Oh, you English teachers, forgive me. I should get you to explain this. But it has a subject, it's saying something, but then it's inserting information into there to broaden your understanding of the subject. If your prefrontal cortex is strong, you should be able to handle that. If it's weak, you'll get completely confused. It'll make no sense. Because you're going to read that line, and then you're going to read that line, and then you're going to read that line, and by the time you get to reflect it in, you will have totally forgotten about the hypothesis of excessive, like completely disconnected already. What does it matter? This is just an example. But what if you're doing a Bible study? What if you're doing a Bible study and you can't read one verse in its entirety and still know what you started with? I hope I'm being exaggerating. I hope I'm exaggerating. I hope that's not the case in your life. But we all have some point where it tears off, like, you know, a whole page and one, just read a whole page, well then you have to read it a second time to get it, right? Or a third time. But the stronger your prefrontal cortex is, the better you can do that, the quicker you can understand something that you read. Because you're able to hold your attention, hold your attention from start to finish. I think you get the point, enough on that. But it's important when it comes to Bible study. You want to be able to study your Bible. You want to be able to understand what you're reading. You want to be able to understand when you start a sentence, and Paul writes to the Corinthians, and he writes this, and then there's a comma, and then there's a bunch of inserts, and then he continues the topic. You want to be able to comprehend that there is an insertion of information that is helpful for context, but not the message. Do you understand what I'm saying? Bring it together a little bit. Negative brain effects from excessive social media use. Just as an overview a little bit, dopamine overdose causes dopamine deficit, which basically means your life outside of social media becomes boring, and it drives addiction, and there's no life in the real life. The prefrontal cortex depreciation or weakening is caused by constant topic switching. I want you to catch that. That is what causes the prefrontal cortex damage. It's the constant topic switching. Lots of status does that. Constant topic switching. And just a reminder what the prefrontal cortex does: planning, decision-making, self-control, attention, working memory, and social behavior. One thing I want to highlight right here is when it comes to temptation, you have an emotional urge for something that you know is wrong, and you are tempted with something, your emotions are pushing something, maybe anger or bitterness or something like that. Your prefrontal cortex says, yeah, I know you're feeling that, but that's wrong, get over it. But when your prefrontal cortex is weak and your amygdala is strong, you say, your prefrontal cortex tells you, well, that's wrong, you shouldn't do it. And the amygdala says, I don't care, I'm just going to do it anyway. And your emotions take over, and you go and you do whatever you shouldn't do, you know you shouldn't do, but you have no power to stand against it. That's not a good place to be. So, using social media for intentional research, intentional connecting and communicating does not have that negative effect. So I'm starting to turn a little bit more to the positive. So I want you to understand this. This is not, there are ways to use social media that don't do that. The passive, mindless, mind-numbing scrolling is what is so bad. You go onto social media with purpose, and you're going to go, I'm going to go message this guy, I'm going to send him a message of blessing. Nothing wrong with that. Do it. Last but not least, so here I'm going to scatter in a few almost random points. I wasn't sure where to put them, but let's go. This is actually a really important point as well. Excessive social media use changes your reality. And I was thinking about putting the word brainwash in there, but I thought it was maybe a bit extreme. So what do I mean? The platform algorithms, they feed you, and it's a feed, and so treat it as a feed of stuff. If you're, and it's particularly bad, especially again the mindless scrolling, when you're not engaged, when you're just feeding itself. The analogy that is absolutely not perfect, but that I thought about is swimming underwater is awesome as long as you don't breathe in. Okay? So in a sense, social media can be like that. You know, you can swim underwater as long as you don't breathe in. It's not a perfect analogy, okay, I get that. And so, but how does social media brainwash you? When you're mindlessly just feeding information into you without caring what comes on your screen, you're just scrolling, it changes your reality. It doesn't overtly attack Christianity, it doesn't overtly attack your beliefs and your faith. What they do is it changes your story, it changes the reality you live in. For example, I live in the real world. I see the snow, I see the people, I see the birds, I see the trees, I see life around me. That's my life. That's the real world. That's how I experience life. Christianity, Jesus Christ, he is, how do I say this? We live out the gospel in the real world. It makes sense. When you spend, in the average, and get this, thank God we aren't average. The average 17-year-old spends 6 to 8 hours a day on social media. That's the average North American. Can you see how a person that sits at 7 hours a day looking into his device, that becomes his world. That becomes his reality. It's a virtual reality, but that's his experience of life, his or her. And so a person like that spends an excessive amounts of time on social media, it disconnects him from the real world, from the real people, real life. And that changes the reality. Now, the thing is, I don't have all the details how this all works. But when you have that reality saturating your life, there are certain things in Scripture that just don't quite fit anymore. I don't have all the answers to this. Maybe somebody who study this, maybe you can tell me later. I suspect it has to do with the type of stuff that feeds on your mindless doom scroll. Things like, for example, Jesus says, love your enemies, bless them that curse you. When you spend too much time on social media, those types of teaching just don't quite fit anymore. I mean, you know how much stuff gets stolen in Arbrig all the time, and these people get away with it. They never get put in prison. They never get punished for the crimes they do. Man, if I would catch them one time when they would be stealing, you know what? Then, didn't you be taught a lesson? Love your enemies. It doesn't quite fit. There's other things like that. It's a slow deception, I think, that we need to be careful for. And this is especially true for teenagers and young and children that, prefrontal cortex hasn't developed yet. Parents, do your children really need a cell phone? And I don't know, maybe none of you have children with a cell phone. What's a child? Yeah, well, you put your age wherever you think that's appropriate. But when a child is in development stage, the brain is still developing, to give them something mind-numbing like a social media is extremely detrimental. Don't destroy your children with that. We were going to get into some positive things, weren't we? Well, we have a few other things to cover here. Oh yes, so this is the thing. God is real, not virtual. God came to real people, not virtual people. God came to save real people from real sin and to give us real life. I hope you believe that. This does not mean that all things virtual are bad. That's not what I'm trying to say. I think you get that. Mind control by the feed of social media. I kind of talked about that a little bit. Some in my survey and some other places, people were asking, what about the whole mind control, the mass, all that kind of stuff. Then you have the content itself. Some of the social media stuff is, again, depending what platform, depending what kind of restrictions you put in place, there's some controls you can do on social media platforms. Content can be regulated quite a bit. I would never fully trust them, because even if you set your settings to have child content only, well, guess what? Their child content isn't my standard of child content. Okay, let's just not argue with that. And so there's, the whole topic about content and what are you actually feeding on social media, whether it's YouTube or wherever. Yes, I know. Today I'm mentioning YouTube. I throw YouTube basically in that bin today, and this topic is in there as well. False teaching. Do we know what we believe? Do we know where we stand? When we hear, okay, back to that thing about being able to study, being able to understand long thoughts. If we do not do that, if we do not do our own study, It's easy to go on YouTube and listen to a message. That's easy. And we can be blessed by it. We can be encouraged by it. But if that replaces our own study, I have a big concern. How do you know if they're misleading you? How do you know they're teaching you the truth? You need to study for yourself. 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show yourself approved unto God. And just keep going. Parents, do you know what your children are doing on the phones? And this slide here has a bit of random things, okay? So they're not necessarily connected. If your children have a phone or have access to your phone, do you know what they're doing on your phone? I just heard this week of that this has happened in this community where children use their parents' phone to access inappropriate content online. That has happened. Are you confident your children did not do that? I put this one up there because I've had 2 people come to me about this. I hope it shocks you a little bit, but I will tell you that I do not fully agree with it. I will not equate social media use to be equal to porn. That to me, I don't feel right about that. But the men that came to me with that phrase, they have a point. That's a point I want to make. From my research, it seems that girls have a little bit more of an addictive problem with social media, if I may say it that way. If you, and this can be married people, this has happened to some people that I know, where the husband felt like the wife had a second husband, like basically because she was just on social media the whole time. And he would like to spend time with her, but she's just on social media. Like, it can create a jealousy. Wives, do you know what your husbands feel when you're on social media? Husbands, do you know what your wives feel when you're on social media? When you're sitting on the couch after work, after supper, and you're on social media, and your wife is doing the dishes, and the children are screaming in the next room, what do you think your wife feels at that moment? Do we love our wives? Do we express our love to our wives by being on social media when she's doing dishes and the children need help? And we're just mindlessly relaxing after a hard day's work? Honor each other in marriage. Husband to wife, wife to husband. Are you scared of that topic? If you are married and you spend a lot of time on social media, I think you should have that discussion. Because your spouse is more important than social media. Trust me. No, don't trust me, trust your wisdom. Anyways, let's go on. So here's the thought. Give children access to the world. Or are we giving the world access to our children? When we give them unfettered access to a phone. Some of this doesn't even necessarily have to do with social media. It could be just the internet. Like I said, this particular section here is a little bit, I wasn't sure where to put it in. I felt it needed to go somewhere, but I wasn't sure where. When social media becomes a drug versus a tool, you start running into all kinds of temptations and problems or troubles. This is really the core line to basically this whole evening. When you use social media as a drug, and yes, I'm using the word drug, if you're using social media to numb some kind of pain, to numb something that isn't right in your life, that's where the trouble starts. Now, on the ministerial enrichment, we had a topic about biblical use of technology, and we had some good discussions after that. The question was raised, is social media use an excessive or a wrong use of social media? Is that the problem, or is that a byproduct of the problem? Is your life empty and void of meaning, and therefore you go to social media? Or are you so much on social media that your life becomes void of meaning and empty? What came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know if I can answer that, but why do we spend so much time on social media? Are we craving attention? Are we craving affirmation that we are not getting where we should be getting it? Now I'm talking to parents, to your children, or spouse to spouse, or friend to friend. Am I the friend that my brother needs or my sister? All right. What's the cost of social media? Now, I don't know if you're brave enough to raise hands, but if you think for a moment, your favorite social media app, whatever that is, YouTube, TikTok, Be Real, Instagram, I actually want a response this time. And don't feel bad if it's okay to be embarrassed later. This is not a trick question, actually. But would you pay $5 a month if whatever your favorite, well, let's just say Instagram. Let's say you're using Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. If they suddenly came out and said, okay, starting on May 1st, it's going to be $5 a month. How many of you would pay $5 a month to have your social media? Raise your hand, please. I mean, be honest. You probably would. How about $10 a month? Some of you would. Yes. Don't be shy. I don't want to make anybody feel bad. But I'm genuinely curious how much you value your social media. Is there anybody here that would pay $20 a month for social media? Instagram? TikTok? YouTube? A couple of people do. Not the messaging part. Now, I would strictly then be, the status part I would, but not the messaging part. Let's keep it to the WhatsApp status included in that. $20 a month. Not just generic internet, no. I'm talking social media specifically. So you probably wouldn't be paying anything for it then. Nobody here would pay $50 a month for social media. Am I right? Anybody rich enough or desperate enough for social media to pay $50 a month for it? Going once, going twice. I've sold social media now. Okay. What do you value your time when you're not at Dymo or Okno or wherever else? If I have a job for you, you're supposed to watch my online stocks. If it changes this much, buy it. If it changes this much, sell it. That's your job, nothing else. You cannot be on social media during that time. This can be done in the evenings or on weekends. Would you do it for $20 an hour, like 1 hour a day like that? $50, how much would I pay you? How much would I have to pay you for you to spend an hour a day to watch something or do some kind of work, something that's not bad work, not hard work necessarily, but just committed time to something? Nobody wants to raise their hands by now because you know where this is going. No, maybe you don't. If you think your time is worth $5 an hour and you spend half an hour a day on social media, you're spending $75 a month on social media with your time. You okay with that? If you think your time at home is worth $10 an hour and you spend 2 hours a day on social media, like many people said, you're spending $600 a month of time on social media. You okay with that? Are you getting ripped off? Are you overpaying for social media? I don't know. Maybe we should fund our church building project by charging based on social media use. Okay, whatever, let's go on. Couple of thoughts on screen time. I've had some people would mention about screen time being bad and how it destroys your brain and whatever all. I looked into that a little bit. Digital devices emit blue wavelength that suppresses melatonin production. I'm too much on social media, I can hardly read that sentence. Hormone that signals body to prepare for sleep. So anyways, so there's a couple of things about screen time. Exposure to blue light before bed increases time to fall asleep, which reduces the deep REM sleep, which decreases alertness the following morning. Sleep loss selectively impairs prefrontal cortex, leading to brain fog, reduced executive function, and decreased ability to regulate emotions. That talks about the prefrontal cortex again. My recommendation is, I'm going through this fast, you should not look at a screen the last hour before going to sleep. It just helps you sleep better. But screen time alone doesn't necessarily destroy your brain. Much more important is what is on the screen. It's the argument we're saying for an alcoholic. The bottle isn't your problem, it's the alcohol in the bottle that's the problem. And some of you might not like when I say this, but screen time alone doesn't concern me. I spend 10 hours a day on a screen on average. I'm doing work. It's a computer screen. But we have contractors, we have different people, they use your phone for business. They could spend 5 hours a day on the phone calling people and messaging and emailing, and they have no problem with the social media addiction. I don't think screen time alone is a problem, it's what's on the screen. So, about relationships. God cares about relationships. Jesus said, this is Matthew 22, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the laws and prophets." Talking about relationship. Loving God, loving each other, loving our neighbor. God wants good relationships. Romans 12 says, "Be kindly," verse 10, "be kindly affectionate one to another with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another." And I found an interesting one here. 2 John 1:12 says, "Having many things to write unto you, I would not write with paper and ink, but I trust to come unto you and speak face to face, that our joy may be full." I think face to face has value. I want to talk about that a little bit. The importance of real relationships. Passive social media use superficially fulfills relationship needs without requiring commitment, making it easy, but not truly satisfying. Wrong social media use can prevent you from getting married, believe that? Or have good marriage relationships. It triggers feelings of connection, but doesn't create real relationships. Direct communication on social media, like messaging or commenting, can build real relationships, especially if you already know the person in real life. Use it for such. So I'm trying to differentiate here between just passive usage and actually with intention. Real world social life involves body language, eye contact, and the friction of physical presence, all of which teach social cues and empathy. Social media, by contrast, is predominantly digital, disembodied, and text-based, and images. This results in the form of social junk food interaction that satisfy the immediate cravings, but don't really fulfill you. Think of it like whenever you're hungry, just always eating chocolate and candy. That's it. Like, you're hungry, just chocolate and candy. Yeah. That really wouldn't be satisfying for very long. Here's something that I learned when I went for counseling. The joy to be with you. That's the term I like to use. I like to phrase it like that. I don't know if that's actually a term, but in my world it is. When you have a 2-month-old baby or a 4-month-old baby and you hold him, that child gives you nothing but dirty diapers. But we still love it. If it's my child, I love him because it's my child. You know, play with the cheeks, try and make it smile and look in the eyes and rejoice when it starts to give a response. It starts to smile back, it starts to, make cooey sounds and that's fun. It's good. But what is that? It is incredibly good for that child, for a baby, to have a parent that just enjoys to be with them. That attitude, that perspective that I have towards my child, when my child gives me nothing, I still love it. I like being with him or her or whatever, your child. That is important for your child. What that does in the child's brain as it develops, it sets the wiring right. It puts down the right wiring in the brain to be able to handle life later. A child that has that relationship with the parents, the mother or the father, looking at that child and spending time with that child, the joy to be with you. I'm just with you because I want to be with you. Not because of anything I'll get from you, but just because I love you and I want to be with you. That helps grow the prefrontal cortex in the brain But more than that, it lays the foundation to good wiring in the brain. I'm using that terminology. I think that maybe makes the most sense. If you look at these two pictures, I wouldn't want that man to be smiling really, but I wanted it to show that he is enjoying himself on a smartphone, on social media, supposedly, and the child is disappointed. The child wants daddy time, but he's just on his phone or on social media. The other picture is what all children want, and all of us parents want that. But sometimes we get caught up in our phone and we miss what's really important. But you know what? It's not just babies that need that joy to be with you relationship. Us adults need that too. If the only time I spend with my wife is because I want something, that will hurt her. Your spouse needs you to want to be with him or her. It's the in-person, the real world with the friction of people in the same room, learning how to work together when things aren't always easy. We're together through thick and thin, like we say. We're committed. We trust each other. That's a relationship that gives fulfillment. Social media can help build that if it's already there in real life. But social media alone cannot do that. If you don't have a relationship in real life, social media will not do that for you. There, my children were waiting for this picture all evening. Eye contact between parent and child is very important. You cannot do eye contact on social media. You can look at a picture, you can look at a video, but you cannot have two people looking at each other in the eyes at the same time on social media. Yes, you can do video calling, I know that. But in person is important. Parents, don't destroy your children by robbing them of in-person presence. Your presence is a lot more than just that you're there. It builds understanding, it builds healthy pathways in the brain. It saddens me when I go to the park with my family and I see other parents at the park with their children, and the parents are just sitting on a bench on their phone and the children are running around playing. I'm speaking to myself. I need to be out there playing with them. And here's a side note tip, guys. If you have children when you're young, you can do it much better than when you get old like me. I can still do it too, don't get me wrong. Somebody mentioned to me a couple weeks ago that women go to labor with their phone. They require a phone in their hand by somebody that works in the maternity wards. And it's like, are you kidding me? More important than their husbands, apparently, in some places. Mothers, when you're feeding your infants, don't scroll through social media at the time while you're bonding with your child. That is some of the most bonding, what that when an infant is nursing, is what they tell me, it is learning attachment to another human being. It is learning, the brain is learning how to be attached to another person emotionally. If as a mother you are just on social media because now you have time to be on social media because you're not working, you are taking a big part of it away. I'm not saying it's all gone, but you are removing a big part of what could be there. I'm not saying you should never at all have a phone in your hand. Like, some of this comes with, common sense and with regulation. All right, let's talk about the good stuff. Oh yes, I will end at 9. I'll make this brief, but I don't want you to, I hope to make it long enough so that it still sinks in a little bit that there are good uses of social media. So one of the things is getting practical help and advice from like-minded users, professional communities, like how-tos. YouTube can be Facebook groups, can be Instagram like-minded groups or whatever. Following people or groups focused on personal growth areas like leadership, counseling, Christian encouragement can provide positive, thought-provoking content. Staying connected to family members in different countries, in areas you don't regularly, or areas you don't see them in real life. Business promotions, reconnecting with lost family and finding lost acquaintances. There's a story about that. Some guy got lost in India, this is many years ago, got off in the wrong train station or something and completely hopelessly lost and ended up in foster care and eventually got adopted to Australia as a 5-year-old boy. Once he turned 20, 21, somewhere in that age, Facebook was a thing already, and I can't remember, was it 2008 or 12 or somewhere in that time? He goes on Facebook and he starts searching. He has a couple of at 5 years old, he has a certain things that he remembers, like just faintly. He can remember the certain house, a certain street, a certain something. And he starts Google Maps, Facebook, and he uses social media to trace and to trace and to search till he actually finds something that he recognizes, that he thinks is the real thing. And he goes back, and sure enough, and he finds his mother, and he finds his family again, and he gets reconnected because of social media. Hey, there's good uses of social media. News, staying aware of what's happening in the world. Oh, and number 6, sharing the gospel. There's a story, I couldn't find it now. I know I've read it recently somewhere in a book, and I couldn't find it right now when I wanted to. But there's a story of a true story, happened, can't remember. Book's written after 2015. The story was somewhere, all the stories in the book were after 2010, so it gives you a little bit of perspective of what the timing was. So social media, obviously, then it's got to be pretty recent. A girl in a Muslim country, through some, I don't remember exact details, but she became saved. And she was excited, free, and happy to be forgiven. She tells her parents about it, her mother, and her father passed away almost right after that, I think it was, or was it just before that? Anyway, her mother gave her, her mother was her worst persecutor. Just mean to her and made her, whatever, just very, very condescending to her decision to follow Christ. Muslim country that isn't very friendly to Christians. What this girl did, she went on with life like that for several months. And one day she was thinking, like, how can I share my joy? How can I share Jesus with other people like me that are sad and that are lonely and that are, they need Jesus. So one day she thought, you know what? She went on Facebook. She made a page, a Facebook page. She put a picture of a girl up there, not her face, but maybe she had her full Muslim garments on. So anyway, she was not recognizable. And then she posted on there, and she started sharing her testimony a little bit. And then she said that she put out date and time, I don't remember what it was, but that day she would be live on Facebook to answer questions. If anybody had any questions about Jesus or about how she got saved, and they could ask her, and she would respond in real time. Not on video, but via text and commenting on Facebook. So she did that, and she had lots of questions, and people all, like, it's Facebook, so nobody knows that they're doing this, right? There could be all, unknown or strangers, anonymous. So she does it for a while, and usually she would start at like 9 o'clock in the evening. Often the commenting would go on all the way till midnight or past. It became a whole ministry. A lot of people would ask questions, and they were curious, and some people would threaten her and curse at her and all kinds of stuff online, but she kept on sharing the gospel. One day, a message popped up, and it's her mother on her Facebook page that wants to talk to her. Her mother has no idea that's her daughter because she had a fake name. And this mother starts chatting with her daughter. She's up in her bedroom and starts asking questions, and like, why do Christians act like this? Like, and then tells her the story of her daughter, of how she's so different, and she likes some of the, she's so happy and all that, and I do all these things to her, and she's still, like, she has questions as a mother, and she has no idea she's talking to her daughter. And her daughter is just jittery with excitement and nervous, and but she can't obviously tell her mother that it's her, because that would just slam the door shut real quick. But that went on for several weeks. She would regularly be communicating with her mother anonymously on Facebook. Until one day her mother became saved. She accepted Jesus. And she still had no idea that her daughter was the one that led her to Christ. And she decided, I'm not going to approach my mother. She can come to me. it was interesting. Her mother didn't say anything for a week. But the daughter, the girl, noticed the difference right away. Like, she's just different. She doesn't yell at me anymore. She doesn't, like, things are different. But she wouldn't say anything. And the reason I wanted a story, because I couldn't remember exactly how it ended. I know it was about a week later when they finally started talking together, and the mother shared what she had experienced, and she was now in support of her Christianity and whatever. I can't remember details. And then her daughter finally tells her that it was her that she'd been messaging with all the time. Guys, that's a good use of social media. And I think sometimes we want to just be consumers. We need to look at the tools that God has given us or that are available in the world that we can use for the glory of God and use them in a positive way. Practical tips, these are very random. If you're addicted to social media, these are a bit random, honestly. Like, disable notifications from platforms. I've gone to my social media apps like Facebook, Instagram, I disabled all notifications. They don't notify me about anything, except I think maybe a direct message. I try to have direct message on because people message me sometimes about something, and then I keep missing that because I have everything disabled and I don't see it. So there's the downside of that. You can get parental control on apps. If you want that, you can just get rid of your phone if you think that's the thing to do. Here's a thought. Spend equal time with friends in person as online. If you spend 5 hours a week on social media, then maybe you can have 5 hours a week with, take me out for coffee or something. I don't drink coffee, but anyways. You can memorize scripture, you can sing, you can... Oh, here's one thing that, again, where does it fit in? When you're one-on-one with a person, put your phone away. I consider it disrespectful to have to hold a phone in my hand when I'm talking to somebody. Now, sometimes I don't have a pocket or a purse or whatever, and you have to have a phone somewhere. I mean, I get there's practical life, but I still consider it disrespectful to be holding a phone in my hand when I'm trying to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody. Are you addicted? I had on the survey, some people were asking, well, how can I get rid of the social media addiction? And I haven't spent much time in getting out of addiction. I know me and my wife did this 2 years ago, maybe a couple years ago, where we felt that or at least I felt that way, and so I led the initiative of that. But you know what? We're just going to cut off. No social media. We said for 1 month. And then after that 1 month, we said, well, we like it so much, let's do another month. Or we just open-ended it. We didn't say when we would end. We did that for 3 months. It cured my social media addiction. After 3 months, we said, okay, well, that commitment is off. I think it still took me a week before I went back on social media. And I had no cravings for it. Sometimes I would forget it. Like maybe a week went by and say, oh yeah, there's social media. I should see what's on social media. It's the place to be sometimes. But I put their 3-day, 3-month off challenge. If you're off of social media for 3 days, then you will know if you're addicted or not. If you haven't noticed anything, then you're not addicted. You'll probably know it after the first day. If you're addicted, I would encourage going 3 months. I know there's some that would say, well, at least go 1 day off of social media. That will already help you. I was like, maybe it will help you that 1 day, but no, that will not help you. There is a momentum of people leaving social media across the globe these days. I don't know if you noticed that. You probably didn't notice it, but maybe you've heard it. The Minimalist is a 3-guy organization that are all about posting social content about being minimal people. They decided, well, let's minimalize our social media or digital lives. And so they heard about Cal Newport, and he talks about decluttering. He's a businessman, he's an author, and he has never been on social media. And he says, that's a lie. You do not have to have social media to be a business person or to have a business. And so these minimalist guys, these 3 guys, I don't have their names in front of my head now, but they said, why 1 month? Let's just do 3 months right away. So they did. They had 75 million views the previous year. They had an amazing year. Like they were a big group, whatever. They did their living on social media or from social media content. And they said we were going to go 3 months, no social media. Their followers fell like a rock. Their revenue fell like a rock because that was their business, right? But they did it. I was amazed. There's people that are willing to sacrifice to try this. And they did it for 3 months, and they learned a lot. And I watched their whole show about when they talked about what that did and how they did that. They're back on social media now, but much more regulated, more intentional. What I'm saying is you can do it. You can do it. Final verse, Hebrews 12 verse 1. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily besets us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For the joy that is set before us. If social media is robbing you of meaningful relationships outside of the digital world, if it's causing, like I said in the beginning, you talk to wisdom. My desire is that we as a community, as a church, that we could be shining brilliant lights in this world, not brain-dead Christians, if there is such a thing, but of Christians that act and think and look like a bride expecting her husband. May that be our goal, may that be our drive in life. Thank you.